Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So today, I'm going to be giving you guys the second part of what if Naruto was betrayed and became deaf, or the One Man Apocalypse. You guys seem to like the first episode a lot, and I couldn't get it to you guys yesterday because of recording issues that really annoyed me. So I'm going to be giving it to you guys today. So anyways, let's get into the part. Chapter 3, Death of a Wedding. Suna's Desert. As a strong wind started blowing, some sand seemed to concentrate, compressing and forming a figure of a young man with gray and with jet black tipped hair. He couldn't help but remember the blank desert that the land of the dead had become after the war of the apocalypse. After the war of apocalypse. In the past, there had been temples and buildings, as well as arenas of various sorts, but now it had all been reduced to endless desert. Yet, if his plans were to come to fruition, then it wouldn't be like that for much longer. Naruto thought of it not as a endless desert, but a blank canvas that someone with his artistic skill as well as celestial power was meant to mold into the perfect living space for him and the rest of the horsemen that he would find in time. Naruto would have rode the spear all the way to Suna, but he was fairly certain that that an undead flame engulfed horse would shock too many people, and he was trying to keep as low as low a profile as possible for as long as possible. This strange feeling I am feeling is getting stronger the closer I get to Suna, said Naruto, letting his foxy grin showing once again. Knowing my luck, I will most likely meet at least one shinobi from Konoha. Need to keep a level head until everything is set in place for the grand finale. It was easy testing his power. It was easy testing his powerful seals he placed on himself to ensure that his power was greatly suppressed as he walked to his destination. Even if he couldn't, even if he couldn't use chakras, since the key thing about it is that it was an energy source that was only able to be used by those who were alive, and him not only being a Nephilium, as well as a horseman of death, countered that entirely. Death using the powers of the living. The thought of such a thing made him chuckle to himself. It was kind of a bummer for him to not be able to use any of the jutsu he had used while still human. Yet having newfound powers, such as what he had, and a body incapable of being harmed by any form of weapon that wasn't forged in heaven, in the bowels of hell, or in itself, or the forges of heaven. I wonder how my old friend Gata is doing at this moment in time. It has been quite a while since I have seen him, he said, opening his eyes, clenching his hands into a fist for as he stared at them. The raw feel of power gave him a feeling of euphoria. With it, he was set the balance of the world straight once more. Better start moving. If this feeling is right, if this feeling I'm getting is right, Goddard should be in danger, and I will need to hurry so nothing bad happens to him. Using his power, he called forth Dusk to fly up into the air so that he can see how much further he needed to go to reach Suna. He saw that he was within close proximity of to the village, so he donned his mask to hide his face, since even with his hair changing colors, he still had whisker marks that helped people identify him quite easily since no one else in the world had them. But now they were even more feral looking since his transformation. Once his appearance was hidden away from others, Naruto walked a short distance towards the village gates. Several trails of smoke showed a recent attack had happened. Walking faster, he approached the gate before stopping inwardly and inwardly cursing his rotten luck, for in front of him was the last group of people he wished to see at the moment. Team 7. Identify yourself, said Asuna Shinobi, reaching for his weapon after seeing the stranger appear. And judging by his intimidating attire, he wanted to be on guard in case he was hostile. I'm here to see Subaku Nogara on urgent business. But since I don't think that having smoke coming out of your houses is a normal occurrence, this must be the worst time I could have chosen to come here, said Naruto before looking behind the Shinobi and at the faces of one Hatake Kakashi, Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and some pale-skinned boy that he never met before. Who are you? Asked Sakura, as she could feel the stare of this stranger. My bad. As she could feel the stare this strange man was giving her. And the mask he wore only freaked her out more than she already was from the attire he was wearing. My name is not important, but for the moment, you may address me as Grim. I came to this village to speak to Subaku Nogara to help him avoid suffering a horrible fate, yet I may be too late. What has happened here? Said Naruto as he was having a hard time keeping himself from killing those he once called a team and make himself a target. Not yet, at least. The Kazekage has been kidnapped by the Akatsuki, and we're here to help save Gaara at the request of his siblings. It seems that they know we are far superior to their shinobi, since they can't help themselves, says Sasuke with a smirk. He will impress this man, making his name known in even foreign lands, and it will spread the name of the Uchiha even further than it already is. So Gaara is the Kazekage, huh? Now I have to congratulate him once this mess is over. Naruto said to himself. He already sensed where the Akatsuki were taking Gaara, since dust had picked up their trail in the distance. Wait, you never said why you came in the first place, said Temari, having walked in on the conversation. I came from overseas. I'm here with a gift, or a curse if you wish to call it that, as many would say it is, that allows me to see multiple futures of anybody or anything that could greatly impact the world. In one of my visions, I saw your brother in mortal danger, and if he perishes, then the world would head down a dark path that my visions have shown will be the end of the world as we know it. So I have come to offer up my assistance so that this dark future could be avoided, he said, walking away with his hands at his sides like his predecessor did long ago. Wait, said Kakashi, fixing his eyes on the boy Grim, a sense of dread possessing his soul as he looked the man in the eyes. His dark blue eyes were devoid of life and only promised death to those who crossed them. What do you want, Konoha Shinobi? Asked Naruto, who just wanted to leave so he can save his friend before it was too late to do so. The mask. Where did you acquire such a thing? For I can feel a strange source of power emanating from it, he asked. This was given to me by the man who once donned it himself long ago before he passed away. There isn't another one like it anywhere in the world. So if you're going to ask me where you could get one yourself, there isn't another one to acquire. Why help Suna like this? We're from Konoha, the strongest village of the whole elemental nation. You should use these powers of yours to help us, not this weak village, said Sasuke, as he wanted this man in the village so that the council could force him to teach him everything that he knew and gain even more power. For though his Sharingan was complete, his lust for power hadn't diminished in the slightest over the last 3 years. Naruto couldn't help but snarl, unnerving the duck-ass hair boy. Sorry, but my power doesn't work in the way you think it does, said Naruto as he fully turned around to face Sasuke. For it only shows me the futures of people or events that impact the world. Many times I ignore the events since tampering with the future always has consequences. So if that's how your power works, Then why not look into Sasuke's future, since he's the last Uchiha and his very existence is influential for the world? Asked the pink-haired fangirl Sakura. If that is true, then allow me to peer into your future. Then, said Naruto, who was mentally laughing at the fact that they were buying this bullcrap, since he didn't have the powers he said he did, and yet they were so easily convinced that he did. So he held his clawed gauntlet up and poked Sasuke in the forehead while heating up the tip just a bit, to really sell it. So what did you see in his future? Asked Kakashi, who was genuinely interested in what the strange man would say about his student's future. I see many possible futures for this boy, and yet not a single one of them ends well for him. His life goal to avenge his clan goes unfinished, and he dies by the hands of someone he thought was dead. I have peered into thousands of branching paths he could take, and yet all of them end in utter failure and death, he said, making the others flinch at how calmly he was saying this to their face. How dare you say that? Your power must be defective, since Sasuke will avenge his clan and become the ultimate shinobi, screamed Sakura, unable to look into his eyes in fear. As I have said, I peered into many paths he could take, and if you wish to be in denial, then you shouldn't have demanded that I peer into his future. This made Sakura take a step back. When was the last time that she saw something like that happen, being talked back to like this? Is there any way we can convince you to come to our village after this mission is over? Asked Kakashi. I am fairly certain Akage can make some use of your power. I chart my own course, without hindrance, and if I happen to end up in Konoha, then it will be because I was meant to go there. For I answer to a higher calling and let destiny decide where I go. And not even your eye concealed by your headband can change my mind in any way. But you are welcome to try, and yet you will fail, and the price of failure is steep. Kakashi instinctively put a hand on his Sharingan eye as he said this. But why was he doing that? Why was he doing just that? And by taking up too much of my time, you may have made it too late to save Gaara in time, said Naruto as his raven dust landed on his shoulder and awed out the directions for him. Is that an animal summon? Stammered Sakura, in surprise to see a raven just appear out of nowhere, in the desert no less. No, he is not. He is nothing more than my familiar and companion, he said, walking away. What is his name? Asked the very now pissed Sasuke, who was pissed by this man not only telling him that he would fail to avenge his clan, but also brushed him off like he was nothing. His name is Dust, and why you wanted to know that doesn't make sense, since it doesn't do you any good to know his name, answered Naruto before he began to walk away once more. But we shall stay together, since we are going to try to save the Kage, said the pale boy. Shut up, Sai, answered the last loyal Uchiha. You wouldn't be able to reach the destination in time, so I must make haste, said Naruto as he jumped into the air and mounted on the spear that appeared out of thin air. Doing so caused those in the immediate area to stare with wide eyes as they saw this. Naruto saw this and inwardly chuckled as the spear sprinted further as fast as he could and disappeared into the distance faster than the others could ever, even at their peak speed. Clearing. Akatsuki hideaway. They need some lesson in hiding. Even an organization of S-class nukemen has to pay attention, and a boulder of all things with seals in the front of a gate is not something that you can naturally find around here, or anywhere if you think about it long enough, said Naruto as he stood before said boulder. Now he only had to find the other seals and remove them all at the same time. Yet, before he could say anything more, he felt the power of a soul entering his amulet. He channeled his mind to see who it was, and to his utter rage, it was Gaara's. Ah! F this! He then conjured up his purplish blue spirit arm to punch the boulder, By doing so, he cracked it open large enough for his second arm to enter as well. Once inside, he used his enhanced strength to rip the boulder in half. Two members of the Akatsuki inside the cave looked up in shock. The same was done by the other shadowy figures in the room, hollow projections of the other members of Akatsuki, from their position on the fingers of a huge statue. He saw Gado's body on the ground, with his demon extracted, and his body lifeless. The rage built up inside of him as he saw his best friend dead on the ground, and the very people responsible were sitting before him. "Who the hell are you? And how did you enter?" asked the blonde male, Datara. "A force of nature that you have unfortunately seen fit to infuriate with your recent actions. But now, just need to know me as your personal executioner. I will be merciful and give you a fast death if you let me take Gado's body." The hunched over one, Sasori, laughed as he heard this, since he was thinking that this strange boy was joking. "Do you have any idea of who you are dealing with, or even how strong we are? Do you seriously think you could take both of us out?" asked Sasori. "I do believe, as I used to believe back in the old times, you seem to think that I care, or that I should care, about you or your abilities. In reality, to me, you're only human trash. Trash that believed to be better than everyone else. And that is something that I still can't stand when it comes to the likes of you, arrogant fools. If I have to be honest, I still think that the only solution of this problem is to kill you pathetic pieces of trash, and all with your kind of mindset. But this is way easier since I just only have to remove the problem at the source." "What?" asked one of the projections in the room. "Shut up and die. For with your death I can resurrect ones whose life was snuffed out too early," said Naruto before suddenly appearing behind Sasori, using his speed and beheading him with a backhanded motion of the hand. The sound of breaking wood resounding in the cave loud and clear. Sasori had to think his instinct if he could come out of the puppet before being hit. "How did he move that fast?" thought Datara, while the gray-haired boy positioned the dead god on his shoulder, quickly moving towards the exit. But he just remembered that he needed to do fast hand seals to send the statue away. Yet before he could do that, the stranger before him held out his hand, and the statue split open, allowing the Biju Shikaku to fly out and be absorbed into Naruto's arm. And yet, as it did so, a circular symbol with three smaller circles appeared. One was already filled with a crimson symbol, and another filled up with a sand brown color one. "Datara! Sasori! Stop him now!" said the projection that was in the middle of the others. Nodding, Sasori rebuilt his puppets, while Datara started making several kinds of bombs using the mouths in his hands. "Alright, prepare to die, damned kid," said Datara, grinning evilly. Naruto unholstered his pistol redemption and quickly aimed at his target. "Die!" he simply said, firing off a shot towards Sasori, both Sasori as well as Datara. It was only thanks to a fast substitution jutsu that the duo dodged the attack in time. Naruto laughed internally since he had honestly believed that humans, even those with jutsus like the ones in this day and age, wouldn't be able to dodge bullets. Yet, he was just proven wrong, and he would file that bit of information for use for later. Another burst of speed let Naruto and Gaara touch the more stable, solid ground. Putting his friend's body down, he sidestepped so as to dodge one of the many puppets Sasori had summoned to fight him, before crushing it with his strength alone. While he was facing Sasori, Datara continued forming explosive animals, hoping to drive Naruto away from Gaara so that their target would end up harmed and finished. They could bring the body back to the leader as he had commanded them to do. He was unsure as to why as to why he wanted the dead body. But who was he to question the man? Die, you fool, said Sasori, as an army of puppets moved as one to kill the insolent boy who dared to destroy his art. For each one of his puppets was a work of genius to him, and by destroying even one of them, sent him back nearly several weeks, since he would have to find an adequate replacement in the world to capture, and begin the process of turning them into a puppet. Sorry, but I don't take orders from the likes of you, said Naruto as he let loose an incredibly small fraction of his spiritual pressure, rooting the two criminals in place, since their powers were not enough to shrug off such raw spiritual power. While he was calmly walking towards Sasori, he started humming, playfully, remembering how in the past he had always been in the position that these two were in now. On their knees, with fear in their hearts, as well as uncertainty that they would survive to see another day. Thinking back on these moments filled him with rage, and harnessing the power of that rage, he took the boy's red-haired head clean off, moving his hand in an open palm in a smooth cutting motion. So he was a living puppet. Never thought I would see something like that in my future, in my lifetime, he said before stomping the cylinder with Sasori's heart inside, splattering blood everywhere and collecting the soul that tried to fly away in vain from this monster of a man. Now it's my turn, said Deidara now that he could move again. He flew high in the sky on his clay bird, having at the ready a storm of explosive birds waiting to be unleashed on a target. But the boy wasn't fazed by this in the least, nor did he even look the least bit worried by this. If you say so, then yes, it is your turn, said Naruto, shocking Deidara as he unlatched his bladed whip and whipped it towards him. The blades on the whip dug deep into the clay bird's body and caused the thing to explode, blasting both of Deidara's legs off in the process. The fall also caused him to receive a broken arm, since he landed on his side from such a great height. He tried to crawl away from Naruto while bleeding heavily on his back. Yet Naruto slowly walked to him, as he once again unholstered his pistol and pointed it at Deidara's head. "Ooh, F me sideways," said Deidara in fear, since he knew that he was about to die here and now. "Sorry, I don't swing that way. Nor will I ever," said Naruto before shooting a bullet into his head at point-blank range. After he dealt with the two enemies before him, he looked back towards the hollow projections of the others. He walked up to them and looked at him, and they looked at him in anger, since he had not only killed two members of the organization, but he had also stolen the Biju that they had spent so much time planning to acquire. Lee, what you have seen today, what you have seen today, serve as a warning, said Naruto as he cleared at each one of the projections with his eyes glowing as he hid his face behind his mask. For if you continue to going down this path, you are walking, then you will have to deal with me personally. And if that ever happens, you best drop to your knees and pray to whatever God you believe in to save you from my wrath. Yet, I will warn you ahead of time that your gods will not listen to your pleas. And he turned around to collect his friend's body. Who are you? Asked one of the projections. I am known by many names, said Naruto as he looked back at the projections without fully turning his body. Yet, I am known to most people in the world simply as Death. No longer sensing any of the other Akatsuki members, as the projections disappeared altogether, Naruto let his spiritual power falter, as he felt the Lee Shino become close to him, along with another presence that turned out to be an elderly woman, clearly from Shuna, if he was to guess about it. You! What the hell happened? We could feel the explosion from halfway here, shouted Sakura, pointing at Naruto, who just kept ignoring them, focusing his head on Gaara's body, checking if everything was okay, and was okay that it was still intact, Naruto remained silent as the elderly woman came to check on Gaara with a relatively guilty look in her eyes, probably from having contributed in the Kazekage's life while growing up. Turning his head, Naruto could see how Team 7 from Konoha were ready for a fight. He was amused at the look Sasuke was giving him. He was silently ordering Naruto to answer his question about his powers. Yet, there was no possible way for Sasuke to force him to teach him anything. He's still probably focusing on getting more power. I wonder if I should kill Itachi just for the heck of it, so as to steal his purpose from him. Thought Naruto before he began walking away from them. I thought you came here to help him, said Kakashi calmly. The young man just stopped to look at him. While the wind was blowing from his black cowl in a way that gave them a clear view of his muscle teeth and the abs that they clearly displayed in an intimidating fashion, he gave Kakashi a frown. Yes, you're right. But because of your little group here demanding that I show the Uchiha his future in a vain attempt to boost his ego, I was too late to save him. Then again, I won't pretend some weakens from the leaf can understand the ramification of their actions, said Naruto, seeing Sasuke and Sakura draw some kunai, evidently angered by his words. Take that back, loser, demanded Sakura, her voice reaching a high-pitched volume. Why? I just said the truth. And by your looks alone, you don't seem physically strong, and by the way you act, I don't think you will ever have the finesse to be a leader in any capacity. I would be surprised if you managed to take care of yourself instead of relying on your team to do all the work. For any group in life is only as strong as their weakest member, and if what I see from you alone is anything to go on, your team is weak, he said, smiling mischievously as Sasuke activated his Sharingan while Kakashi scowled at him. Be careful when you insult someone, Crimson. A leaf shinobi is not someone you want for an enemy, said Kakashi in an authoritative voice. His scowl became even deeper as Naruto let out a little playful laugh that seemed far more sinister than it was meant to be. We are not in your country, my dear Leaf Shinobi. By the laws here in the Elemental Nation, if I insult you here, you can't do anything in return, since you have not a shred of power, not a shred of authority in someone else's country. I hope you do not have a problem with what I said. Even then, I suggest you to act humble and leave. Remember that I am not a simple seer. I am a simple seer. Try to think what will happen to your precious village, if I sent a message saying that Konoha's attacks and attempts to imprison a man of religion just for speaking his mind. And even if you succeed in just doing that, there's nothing that anyone in your village can do to make me crack in any sense of the word, nor do obedience seals work on me, either. So please, stop acting superior to your betters, said Naruto, seeing his sensei narrow his eye at him. What did you say, loser? Said Sasuke, moving his hands going through the seals for the Kantan Jutsu. Sasuke, don't! This guy may be a simple seer as he claims, but he took down 2 S-class missing nin without breaking a sweat. Grimson, even if the things didn't start in the right way, I hope you will reconsider the possibility of visiting our village in the next 2 days. We have a wedding scheduled in the next few days, and it will be an honor to have someone powerful like you attend it, said Kakashi, as Lady Chiyo stood protectively in front of Gaara's body with tears in her eyes since he had died, and she felt such great guilt about what she had personally done to him in his youth. A wedding, you say? Said Naruto, who knew exactly who was getting married since his familiar dust had found it out for him not too long ago. May I ask who is the lucky couple that are about to tie the knot in holy matrimony? That would be me, said Sasuke, unaware of the dark aura resonating from Sakura and not too far behind him, since she was enraged that it was someone else and not her who was getting married to her Sasuke. And my wife to be Hinata Hyuga, the former Claire heiress of the prestigious Hyuga clan. You, Grim, you're the one responsible for avenging Gata by killing those responsible for his death. The means of transportation that got you here. Can you use it again to take the Kazakage to Suna for a proper burial? Back to Suna for a proper burial. It will be my pleasure, said Naruto, picking up Gaara before giving a mock salute to the four-leaf shinobi, and suddenly becoming mounted on his trusty steed once more before he took off at breakneck speeds. The Hokage would not approve you of doing this. Why would you let him, a complete stranger, take the Kazekage instead of us, Lady Chiyo? Asked Kakashi, seeing the old woman glare at him. What your Hokage thinks is not my problem. Since I serve the Kazekage of Suna, and frankly, I somehow trust that complete stranger far more than your whole Leaf Village put together, said Chiyo, heading back to Suna, with the others trying and failing to keep up with her. Suna Hospital. 2 hours later. Temari was saddened to see her brother dead and lifeless like he was. And yet his body was practically without a scratch on him. The mysterious stranger placed the body on the hospital bed before moving to the window and shutting the blinds, with a grin on his face that made her think about an old friend that now dead for 3 years. Now, while watching the Suna Shinobi working at the reparation of the damages the village sustained during the attack earlier that day, Naruto couldn't help but think about many things about his old village Konoha and the Akatsuki. He walked up to her and told her to dry her tears since everything would be alright. She wasn't sure why, but she believed him entirely and watched him as he channeled a strange blue transparent energy into both of his hands. The energy in his left hand took form of Gaara himself, yet he was transparent. The one in his right hand formed into a simple heart in a strange container. Naruto took the spiritual heart and crushed it in his hand, turning it into a spear of pure spiritual energy. He then placed it in the soul of Gaara and saw it glow. Once it began to glow, he placed Gaara's soul back into his own body, and shortly afterwards, his cold, dead body filled back up with life and color, and he began to breathe once more. Temari broke out in tears as she saw her brother live once more. She hugged his still healing body as Naruto looked at this with a genuine smile on his face that was hidden behind his mask, and thought on other things as he did. How should I handle them now? I have practically made an enemy of the entire Akatsuki organization, while the Leaf thinks I'm some seer with powers that they could use as they please. The Naruto clan is right. Sometimes life is just too troublesome, he thought. Thank you for saving Gaara, Grim-san. Is there anything you need? Said Temari, bowing slightly in front of him. In that moment, Gaara started to stir. Where am I? What happened? Said Gaara, looking at his sister, apparently talking to a stranger with a very intimidating appearance. You're safe now, Gaara. We're in Suna's hospital. Grim-san saved you from the Akatsuki, said Temari, smiling at Gaara, while his brother Kankuro sat down next to him with a smile on his face as well. Who is he? Asked Gaara. Temari's smile turned into a frown. You don't know? He said you used to be friends, said Temari. While all the while Naruto was smiling, looking at them. I do not know him, Temari. Actually, this is the first time I met this man in my life, said Gaara, which made Temari's eyes widen in shock. The wind mistress then took her iron fan next to the bed, positioning herself between Gaara and the stranger in a defensive stance. Who are you? Said Temari, glaring at Naruto with all the fury her person was able to muster. As I said before, I want to save him. I'm here to help Gaara, said Naruto, smiling like it was some kind of joke. And yet, you don't know Gaara, so what are you doing here? Asked Temari. Why should I lie about wanting to help out Gaara? If I was an enemy, I could have easily killed him by now. by not I could have easily killed him by not returning his soul once more to his body and just letting him remain dead, said Naruto before turning his smile into a full laugh. God has never seen you until now. So you will tell us why you are here, or you will face the consequences, said Kankuro while Tamari kept looking at the horseman carefully. I seen you have grown stronger since the last time I saw you. I remember you being a little gentler. It seems that I am a little different from the last time Gata has seen me. Then again, what I'm gonna say is a secret, and I ask you to never tell anyone until the time comes right. If you remember what we did at one point, if you remember, we did meet 1.3 years ago. It was during the invasion of the Leaf, during the tuning exams. I was the first ever person to defeat you in combat, something that you thought never possible. Do you remember me now? Asked Naruto, seeing Gaara's eyes go wider in shock at each and every detail he was giving in his story, as Tomari's and Kakuro's did too. It can't be! Uzumaki Naruto died at the hands of Uchiha Sasuke. I saw his body being burned into nothing. They even had the galls to let us see it before kicking us out of the village, while all the while everyone was cheering as he died. You look nothing like him, said Gaara, as he could feel all the anger towards Konoha. He felt towards Konoha. The politics of his country made demand that the new Kazekage to keep the alliance with the Leaf valid, but that didn't mean he wouldn't use every grain of sand in Suna's desert to crush Konoha into oblivion if given the chance. Yes, I know. I was there when I died. Yet, hiding one's appearance is very useful if you want to sneak around, but people tend not to recognize you when you need them to, said Naruto as Tamari was still on high guard against him. Prove it to me. Show me you're really my Uzumaki friend, my friend Uzumaki Naruto, back amongst the living, said Gaara, seeing the stranger pull his mask off as well as pull the hood off of his cowl. Gaara and his siblings gasped as they saw a more powerful-looking Naruto, as a more powerful-looking version of the once knuckle-headed ninja they came to love as a brother. My bad for messing that up. Is this enough to convince you? Before the sand body of Shukaku started to collapse in our fight, I jumped down from the Toad boss summoning Gemabuta. You said you wanted to prove your resistance, and then I asked why I kept fighting. And then you asked me why I kept fighting. And I know the two of us were alone up there, said a smiling Naruto, amused at the surprised look of their faces of seeing someone they believed dead, walking amongst the living again. Welcome back then, my friend, Gaara said, nodding slowly. Wow, you really did come back, said Tamari, putting her away a fan as Kankuro relaxed again in his chair. Whatever alliance you have with the Leaf, I think it would be better to cut it off. I know a few things that will help all of you survive on your own, without relying on outer resources. I don't think you can trust a place that kills someone that had completed a mission, or that can make a public spectacle of an execution such as mine. Or are you really my enemy as well? An enemy ready to betray me and support the lowest desires of the same pampered betrayer I was sent to bring back, said Naruto. I hope you are joking, because it's not funny, and I assure you that if it's all up to me, by now there would not be a Konoha on the face of this planet, said Gaara, narrowing his eyes. That moment 3 years ago was a still burning wound on his very soul. Good. Even if I don't think that the Wind Daimyo will be happy if you cut your alliance, said Naruto. If he asks, I will simply tell him what really happened after the retrieval of the Uchiha. You may not know it, But Konoha pretty much threatened us. If we were ever to tell the truth about your death, they would move towards war. But I'm pretty sure the daimyo would totally change his point of view towards my choice once I talk," said Gaara, showing his version of Naruto's foxy grin. It seems Gaara is showing his mettle. "I'm happy to be back, even if only to see you guys again. I have to go, and those bastards from Konoha will be here in any minute. But before I go, I have this to leave to you," said Naruto as he handed Gaara a large scroll. "What is this that you are handing to me?" asked Gaara in wonderment to the scroll that was given to him. Inside of the scroll is the deed to the entirety of Whirlpool Country. "I leave it to you, my friend, since your country could use the resources more than I or any other village could." "You are just handing over your entire clan's home and fortune?" asked Temari in utter shock, since the riches as well as the resources from that country far exceeded any other countries as well. "I have no need for such things," said Naruto as he quickly explained in 5 minutes what he was, and why such land was useless to him, since his new home was within the former land of the dead. And when he was able to revive his clan in the future, they would come to call it their home as well, once their transformation into the Nephilim was completed. Once the explanation was done, Naruto shook Gaara's hand and told him that in the future he would come and personally collect his soul to guide him to the afterlife and to continue down the path he was going, so that he would be able to ascend to heaven, since he didn't want to drag him to hell. He then used his power to open portals so as to get ready for an event he had to get ready for in the near future. Half an hour later, Team 7 had finally returned to see if Gaara was really in the hospital's morgue. Yet, the Leaf Group found him deep in thought about something, alive and well to their shock. But when Kakashi greeted the young Kazekage, the red-haired man glared at them so intensely that the stares he used to give 3 years back seemed like nothing in comparison to the ones he was giving now. What was more frightening was that the whole room was covered in sand, ready to crush anyone who dared to challenge him in any way. "Something happened here, Kazekage-sama?" said Kakashi, seeing the intense look from Gaara. "And also, how are you alive? We saw your body as Grim delivered it back to this village." "Yes, after a long talk with Grim-san, I came to a very important conclusion. Tell your Hokage that the alliances between our villages is now null and void. I found something more interesting, and no longer fear retribution from your village," said Gaara, smirking at their shocked faces. "And how I'm still alive? Well, that's for me, my siblings, and Grim to know, and as well as for the rest of your village to never find out. And you, as well as the rest of your village, to never find out." I kind of butchered that sentence. "What? Why would you do this?" asked Sakura. Temari simply walked in front of her, putting her fan on her shoulder. "You don't need to know the full detailed story, kid. But now you have to get out of Suna, or your whole team will be declared hostile, attacked on our command, and so in the prison, where you'll be subjected to tortures that will haunt your dreams for years to come," said Temari, spitting the words out as if they were venomous. "Do you realize the consequences of your actions? What do you think will happen to your pathetic village? You can't touch me. I'm an Uchiha elite. I demand you to tell us the secret on how you revived, or else I will speak to the councils once I return home and will wage war with your village and force you to tell us in the end," said Sasuke as Temari smirked at him. "Just try it. Come on. You move for war and we may let our tongue slip while talking to the Wind Daimyo. Or do you seriously think that he will still support your village if we tell him our little secret? I don't think he will like what we know. Don't you think?" said Temari teasingly. The Suna siblings couldn't help but smile as the teams from Konoha went paler and paler while considering the painful implications should a particular secret regarding a blonde boy be exposed. Can I ask what Grimsen offered you to make you change your mind? Asked Kakashi before Goddess Killer Intent filled the room. What he offered me? Way more than he will ever give us. But the main reason for this decision is that I finally have a reason to cut any and all ties with the place that kept dishonoring my friend Naruto Uzumaki's memory, said Gaara in a tone so devoid of humanity that it made Kakashi take a step back. What? He was a loser. Why should anyone keep weeping over him? No one, said Sasuke, making the Killer Intent in the room become so oppressive that the sand started forming a miniaturized version of Shikaku, roaring at the group. Gaara was only letting them live so as to give his message to the Hokage, but he was rapidly having a change of heart. Get out of here now, or I will kill you! Get out! Starting from now, every Konoha shinobi entering my village without my direct permission will be killed on sight, yelled Gaara, his voice in Killer Intent showing he was a step away from actually killing them. As a veritable sandstorm filled the room. This is not the end of this, said Sakura before they left. I think it is. Now go. My brother needs his rest, said Kankuro, laughing at the least shinobi were literally blown out of the hospital room. Suna, outside of the gate. What now, Kakashi-sensei? Asked Sakura, totally covered in sand, as they were basically blown out of the hospital with such. If they don't want us, it's their problem. Right now, I think we should focus on Grim. If he can offer this much to make Suna cut this alliance, then we should show him that we are a much better choice and bring that much into our hands, said the Jonin, trying to imagine how rich or powerful the man must be. If a mere seer can take out 2 S-class missing then they must train me. With power like that, I will finally kill my brother and avenge my clan, said Sasuke. That's right, Sasuke. I'm sure that he will be honored to train you, said Sakura, hopping behind the Avenger. Let's report to Hokage-sama, and then start making plans for looking for Grin-san after Sasuke's wedding, declared Kakashi. From the sky, a lone raven was seeing all of this unfold, hearing their plans for the future. The fools had just given him a way to enter the village with very little resistance, since such a grand event would call for nearly the entire village population to attend their event. So it would be easy to take away what belonged to his family, and more importantly, save the only woman that ever loved him from this marriage, forced upon her by evil, greedy people. Perfect. Just wait for me, Hinata. I'm coming for you, Naruto said, smiling as he saw through the eyes of his familiar as he was galloping towards Konoha to stop this event from happening. Konoha Chapel. Day of the wedding. Sasuke was standing at the altar smirking his ever-confident, I'm better than you smirk, while waiting for his bride to come down the aisle, to say her vows, and to be his wife until death do they part. While he was still pissed that he had met a man with such great power refused to teach him, and as well as show him up, by completing the mission he had been sent to complete. Once the team had come back and reported what had happened with their alliance with Suna being cancelled, as well as a man by the name of Grim somehow bringing back a confirmed dead Gaara. This news alone getting the attention of all in attendance, since it was apparent that this stranger had a power unlike anything that they could have had ever seen, and was capable of resurrecting the dead. They wanted this power for themselves, since it would help them resurrect those who fall in battle, and could become some of the most powerful medics that were to ever exist. Danzo himself wanted it so that his dreams of global domination would become a reality, with such power as Grim's at his disposal. So the council made a unanimous decision to find this man once the wedding was over and convince him to join their village through either negotiation or force if needed. So once a part of the village, they would sign off, making him a head of a new clan, and enact the CRA, or the Clan Restoration Act, and breed more future shinobi with his powers to use in the future. The Uchiha smirked at the thought of claiming the former Hyuga heiress as his wife, knowing that she loves his nemesis Naruto and was going to enjoy sticking it to the loser while sticking his into the Hyuga bit. She knew that she would know her place in his house by force if she resisted. He was going to see to it that she was pregnant within a month into the marriage. No rest in that. As he would take her morning, noon, night until the Hyuga took a paternity test, with the results being positive. He even had her at night when she slept. Her pleasure was never an issue in his mind because he didn't care about it in the slightest. She was going to be his wife, meaning the Hyugas was going to please him, give him pleasure, and be lucky to feel any from him in return. When she wasn't pregnant on her back of being taken until she was pregnant, Sasuke had every intention of working that woman to the bone and doing everything around the house, and understanding her place in the world was serving him. He would make sure that woman did the cooking, the cleaning, and being pregnant with his children until her very presence was sickening to the point where Sasuke would just kick her abused body out onto the street with nothing but the clothing on her back. Even that last part was him being generous. And if in time she pissed him off enough, she wouldn't even be allowed to keep those. Are you watching from hell, loser? Are you watching me claim this woman as my own? She loves you even now after three years after your death. But make no mistake, I will have her screaming my name. I will make her suffer for loving you, thought Sasuke while everyone took their seats and saw his most two rabbit fangirls from the academy sitting there wishing this wedding was for them and not the Hyuga whore. In time, he might take one or even both of them as his future wives, maybe when he was starting to get bored of the Hyuga woman. But not right now. Hurting Naruto and those who cared about him was his main objective in life right now. All set, Sasuke? Asked Kiba, who Sasuke had requested to be the best man for this, since the Uchiha knew of his growing dislike for Naruto over the years. Since he nodded, the girl he wished to claim as his mate for himself was in love with Naruto over him. And his hatred for Naruto grew even more when Tsunade let the village know of the Kyuubi still within him, and told the village that Naruto was the reincarnation of the Kyuubi. Yes, just waiting for my future wife, answered Sasuke with his grin never leaving his face. The list of chores his new slave, he meant wife, would be forced to do once this was all over. By the time she was done, the entire Uchiha district would be sparkling like the effing sun down to the ground itself from all the cleaning she would be doing. Soon enough, his grin increased when he saw Hinata coming walking down the aisle, with her father walking down it, with his arm around her own. A sense of pride came on his face at sending his eldest to be married to the Uchiha. Though, in truth, Hiyashi was happy that his youngest was going to lead the Hyuga, and a true heir would succeed him. Hinata was getting too strong over the years for his liking, and the fact that her way of thinking went against the clans made things worse for him overall, so measures had to be taken to stamp this little speck of resistance from the clan. He told the Hokage about his situation and how putting Hinata with Sasuke would be the best way to bring her underfoot. Tsunade agreed with him, and after talking things over with Sasuke, the arrangement was made behind Hinata's back. Not that he actually even cared, as his daughter was finally going to be useful in his eyes by securing an alliance with the Uchiha clan through his marriage, boosting the Hyuga even higher in the political realm, and maybe even having one of her children become Hokage with the right amount of training. Tsunade stood behind Sasuke in her Hokage robes, ready to make these two married, and Jiraiya stood off to the side to be crowd control, even though there wasn't anyone who would try to oppose this wedding. After those two were married, Tsunade had given him orders to put the cage burst seal on Hinata's head, which was just like the original one used on the branch members of the clan, except this one would assure that she obeyed her husband by using a blood seal attached to it, and make Hinata obey through a form of powerful hypnosis every command Sasuke gave her through a seal he formed with the help of the Yamanaka clan. The rookies, their senseis, and just about everyone capable of fitting in the chapel, much less getting a seat, was there to witness this marriage. Dearly beloved, we are gathering today under Kami's blessed eyes to bind Hyuga, Hinata, and Uchiha Sasuke together in holy matrimony, to strengthen the ties between their clans of Konoha. If there's anyone who knows why these two should not be wed, please speak up now, or forever hold your peace, said Tsunade, with some people letting out a chuckle, herself included, at the thought that someone would be so stupid to say anything and stop this wedding from happening. Only one person would be that stupid, and he was long since dead. Naruto, thought Hinata, as she had to hold back the tears and praying that this was just a horrible nightmare waiting to end. And just as if Kami himself had heard Hinata's prayers, an incredible power, unlike anything they have ever felt before, swept through the chapel and all through Konoha itself. It was unlike anything they have ever felt before, and wondered what could possibly be causing it. A Jutsu from a sudden enemy attack, a Bijo, or one of both, Jinchuriki from Kumo trying to stop this wedding. What was this power emanating from? Konoha, 5 minutes earlier. A lone hooded figure walked down the road to the gates of Konoha. Footfalls made little to no sounds as he walked. As to why this figure was heading to Konoha, he had a wedding to crash. Halt! State your business, commanded an Abu standing guard at the gate. Is today the day of the wedding between Uchiha Sasuke and Hinata Hyuga? Asked the figure in a calm yet unreadable tone. He kept his head down so that the enemy couldn't see his mask. It is. Why? Questioned the second Abu on guard duty while his hand flourished slightly to get it ready to reach for his sword. Oh good. I almost feared I was too late to attend. I take it everyone in there is ready. It's right. Everyone is there right now. Hence why I see no one walking the streets behind you, replied the figure with a hint of joy in his voice, though for what purpose was unknown. This wedding is by invitation only. Only the Hokage can give such things to the most important of people. Present your invitation to us, and you may proceed to the event. Commanded the first Anbu. Ah yes, my invitation. Silly me. Of course, silly me. Here's my invitation right here, replied the figure darkly while reaching into his shirt pocket for his invitation, and before either of them could react, the figure unsheathed his sealing scythe and decapitated the two guards while channeling fire through the blade, so that the hellfire burned away the corpses, so there wasn't any proof of what had just transpired. The souls of the newly departed flew into the amulet worn by the figure, and seeing that there wasn't anyone else in the area, he continued onwards, He made his way to a dark alley and used his powers, Soul Splitter. He used his powers, Soul Splitter, to turn. He used his powers to turn into a statue, leaving 2 copies of himself to do as they needed to do. One of them took the soul amulet and headed to their destination, while the other went to the chapel to wait for the right moment to crash the wedding being held within it. Everyone in this village deserves to be wiped out. Why you saved that ungrateful liar for Sandaime Hokage from a more horrible fate than one assigned to him? To him, by you is nothing short of a mystery to me, said a voice only the figure could hear and was in his head. You know the reason, Kurama. That man hated paperwork above all else, and we needed someone to process the damned souls. So I killed 2 birds with one stone. Thought the figure to the demon in his head, known as Kurama, while smirking at the memory. The figure was able to converse with the demon stood within another realm, with the power of the interdiction. This copy was nearing the chapel, where he was met with more guards. Halt! This place is forbidden to outsiders unless you have an invitation, stating a Konoha nin in an emotionless tone. I am well aware of that wedding happening inside. That's why I'm here, replied the figure with the pair of Konoha nin glancing at his intimidating figure. They won't mind surrendering any weapons on your person and providing us with your invitation as proof of being invited, said the second nin, who was clearly an Aburame, judging by the way he was covered up and wearing chains to hide his eyes. Of course. Let me see. Invitation. Ah, here's my invitation, replied the figure before using his death grip to grab the nin's head. His headless body slumped down dead on the ground. What the ack? Exclaimed the second nin before feeling a fist go right through his chest where the heart was located. Is it that you and your comrade are nothing more than arrogant drones in the service of a crazed hag for a leader? The guilt of killing you and your leader will weigh less heavily on my soul, remarked the figure before pulling his hand out and watching the body fall while flicking the blood off of his now clawed hands. He summoned more hellfire to be rid of the bodies, like the ones at the front gate. Once that was done, a small portal appeared in front of him, and out of it fell his soul amulet that he caught and once again wore around his neck. Feeling the newly acquired souls within it, he felt the copy of himself re-emerge with himself, making him whole once more. He sent his familiar up to spy the wedding from a high-up window, and tells him when to go in on the phrase, "If there's anyone here who knows why these 2 should not be wed, please speak up now, or forever hold your peace." Once the lie was spoken, dust caught at him, and he let his spiritual power surge forth, and used his spiritual arms to blast the doors open to the chapel. Konoha Chapel, present time. I object to this wedding, the figure at the door called out, with his body being covered in shadow while blocking the light outside just before the pressure let up and the people were able to move once again. Who the hell are you? Furthermore, how dare you interrupt this wedding? Who do you think you are to protest this sacred moment? Tsunade called out while feeling a chill run down up her spine at hearing this figure's voice. There was something about it and the connection to the past. What's wrong, Granny? I'm hurt you don't recognize me. Granted, it has been a few years since my execution, but even your brain damaged. What's wrong, Granny? I'm hurt you don't recognize me. Granted, it has been a few years since my execution, but even your brain, as damaged by drinking sake as it is, should be able to remember what I told you in my cell, and how you should pray to the gods to keep my soul locked up so that I couldn't return? Well, obviously neither you nor the village prayed hard enough to, or long enough, since my death only held onto me. Since death only held onto me for less than a day before I was back and far more powerful than ever before. It is my identity starting to become clear in your mind? Or are the long years of drinking heavily affected your mind? Your already troubled mind. Heavily affected your already troubled mind. Asked the figure shadowed in the sunlight, with his blue eyes shining so they were seen by all who looked at him. No, it can't be you. You're dead, exclaimed Tsunade, as she now recalled the little conversation, and yet the woman wanted to deny it. And here I am, Granny. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto is back! Called out Naruto before stepping further into the room where the lighting washed away the shadow on his body and any doubts they may have had after he put off his mask and pulled down the hood of his cowl to show his face. Naruto! Hinata exclaimed happily at seeing the man she loved standing there in the flesh. It's impossible! It's a trick! Kakashi himself burned the body after Tsunade confirmed his death. With a Chidori to the heart, spoke Jiraiya while Naruto just smirked at him. A trick? You don't believe I'm Naruto, standing before you? That I'm not your former student? The failed weapon you killed out of some misguided need for revenge? Revenge for hurting Konoha's also precious Uchiha, who willingly fled to Orochimaru for power, and couldn't care less if you all died the next day? Then there was a need for you to avenge the Yodaime and his wife after the Kyuubi attacked and was sealed inside of my body. You all cursed me to hell for something that was never my fault. And the humor in this whole situation is that I will never go there. I will never go there, no matter how much you wish, since I have become something far more than any of your feeble minds can comprehend, said Naruto while ignoring the glares and shouts of hatred aimed at him for ruining this holy union. What are you getting at, brat? Called out Jiraiya while Shinobi moved forward to surround Naruto on all sides. What I'm getting at, you old perverted fool, is that your quest to control me and kill me when I couldn't be controlled, you set in motion an event that made me the closest thing to a god that there is in the universe. How dare you disgrace the almighty Kami, shouted a random nin. He will burn in hell for all eternity, and Kami will make it a reality. And as that is said, Naruto couldn't help but laugh at their utter stupidity. You truly believe that your so-called Kami will smite me as you so desperately wish? Yet not a single one of you fully comprehend or fully grasp what the soul plane was like when I died and entered it myself. There was no entrance into hell, since there wasn't anyone to process the souls to enter it. And Kami isn't a god like you think. He's only a truly pure spirit that acts like a beacon to those who are worthy of entering heaven and helps lead the way. But just don't take my word for it, since I will just show you what I mean. Naruto then summoned up the soul of Deidara himself, his arm still broken and his legs still missing, for souls were stuck in the form of how they died. With his soul and hand, Naruto crushed it to gather up the energy held within and used it to summon up a large portal visible to all in the chapel. It showed them what heaven and hell were like, before and after he showed up to rearrange them into their current state. So what, if all that's true? It means nothing, said Kakashi while having his Sharingan exposed. It means everything! If you are too arrogant to see the truth right before your very eyes, then I'm not going to waste any more of my time trying to convince you, explained Naruto, with Tsunade looking furiously at him. You lie! Called out a shinobi to Naruto's right. Stay in denial, for I no longer care to explain myself. I'm here for one thing and one thing only, a simple trade, stated Naruto with Tsunade growling at him. And why do you think that we would trade anything with you? Growled out Tsunade as she prepared to order her shinobi to capture him so they could dissect him and see his powers, and see if his powers could be replicated. Because it could actually benefit you in a way, said Naruto, and my deal is as such. You hand over Hinata to me, and in return, I will leave your village to destroy itself for the next 10 years. You will not take from me what is rightfully mine, shouted Sasuke as he prepared to attack Naruto to prove once and for all that he was finally able to surpass him and set the record straight. Well, I disagree with that, since the alternative to this deal is that I will unleash a destructive force capable of destroying everything in sight, and use said power to destroy 1/3 of the village. Before anything else could be said, or even done by the others in the chapel, Sasuke used the power of his Sharingan to summon forth an enormous purple energy hand, wielding a blade, and used it to attempt to strike Naruto down. Yet, the blade was stopped short from hitting its intended target from one of Naruto's spiritual hands, which, even though was far smaller in size when compared to the size of Sasuke's Susanoo, it was far more powerful than the larger hand. Even after all this time, Sasuke, chuckled Naruto as he saw Sasuke straining to break free of his arm's grip, yet it wouldn't budge. You still have yet to learn when you are outclassed. I'm an elite, shouted Sasuke through gritted teeth, and I am far superior to a nobody like you. And I will repeat the last thing I said to you 3 years ago, said Naruto as his spiritual hand began to crush Sasuke's Susanoo arm and cracks appeared on it as the grip tightened. Even in death, I am stronger than you. And with that, he crushed the arm in a way that it shattered. The backlash of having his Susanoo destroyed caused one of Sasuke's eyes to explode out of his head. He fell to the ground and held his hand up to try to stem the bleeding. Meg Nin immediately appeared to assist in healing him. Arrest him now! Called out Tsunade, with many shinobi in the room, moving in from all directions while Naruto simply looked bored at her. Dust, spoke Naruto with the command hidden within the name. In an instant, multiple dark blurs went through the entire army of shinobi, and they all fell down on the ground, brutally injured. Arms and limbs were broken, if not ripped out of their sockets. Some bodies were bent at odd angles, with their backs broken or with internal bleeding from the head to the torso. What had caused it was a massive flock of ravens that were magically enhanced with far greater strength and sharper beaks tore into its enemies. Those of you who are foolish enough to challenge death itself only hastens their own demise. Who are you? Cried out one of the many injured nin on the ground as he held his arm that had been literally torn off at the elbow by the massive flock of ravens. I go by many names now that I have been reborn into my new body. I am known as the rider of the pale horse, the rider of death, kinslayer, executioner, the reaper, the shinigami, or my official title, death. You will pay for this, brat, called Tsunade, while Naruto looked from her to Hinata. Not today, Naruto simply stated. Now I will give you one more chance to take the deal I offered you before I was interrupted by Sasuke. So you will now use your head for the first time in years, or you will let your hatred consume your ability to think about the big picture. Why would you even offer us this choice in the first place? Growled out Tsunade. Because unlike you, I can see into the hearts of men and see into your very souls themselves. While most of those who reside in this village are destined to suffer for all eternity in the very same hell you tried to damn me to, yet many of them have a shred of light and still in their souls and have a chance to find redemption before their time is up. As the new Shinigami of the world, I only kill those whose souls are purely darkened, as well as those who challenge me. For to challenge death is foolish in itself. So what is your decision? Will you forego your misplaced hatred for me and allow those still capable of redemption the chance to find it? Or will the rage fully consume you and damn all those in this village for your decision? Yet before she could say anything in response, Sasuke, whose eye socket was healed to the point where that blood was no longer flowing out of it, charged forward and struck Hinata through the heart from behind, killing her. "You will never have what's rightfully mine," said Sasuke in pure rage as he threw her body to the side like with nothing. Naruto used his death grip to grab a hold of her body with one hand while the other one grabbed a hold of her soul. "You get your filthy hand off my mate, demon!" shouted Kiba as he rushed forward to tear out his throat with the claws in his hands. Naruto didn't flinch. He simply laid Hinata's body gently to the ground and then made a fist with his left hand. Once formed, he pointed his index finger as well as his high middle finger outwards and pointed them outwards. Underneath Kiba, a spike made out of the earth pierced through his body at an angle that pierced through multiple vital organs, so that there was just no way in hell that he would be saved. He quickly died afterwards from blood loss, and Naruto caught his soul with his left hand, which then formed his dead body, which just had a large hole in his neck. You claim Hinata to be your mate, Kiba, which is your clan's form of saying you were in love with somebody, growled Naruto in fury, since he had seen the way Kiba had been hitting on Hinata during school. Even though at the time he wasn't aware of the love she had for him, he still noticed his lustful advances towards her, which she rejected every time, and yet it never deterred him in any way. Yet you didn't care for her as a person. You only cared for her body and wanted her for nothing more than to use as a form of sexual release. That isn't love, you mutt. That is lust. And yet, since you claim to love her so much, find solace in the souls of non-existence, that your death was useful in a way that she will survive while you don't. He then crushed Kiba's spirit and used the energy from it to restart hers. Once it was glowing, he channeled some of his Nephilim energy into it to start the process of transformation. "You will live once more, my love," Naruto whispered as he kissed her on the forehead before he used his clawed gauntlet to tear open a portal to the newly named realm of the Nephilim so that her body wouldn't be disturbed during the process. "Be reborn as the Horseman of Fury." He then placed her gently through the portal and closed it up again. He looked at Tsunade, who were still at the altar this whole time with a look of utter fury on his face, worthy of the former Horseman of Fury herself. If I had only gotten here sooner, I could have saved her from suffering the pain of death like I have once suffered. I need the items that I collected. "What items are you talking about?" asked Tsunade as Naruto easily dodged the Rasengan thrown by Jiraiya and grabbed a hold of his arm, and with a quick twist, his arm was broken in 3 sections and threw him at Tsunade. She caught him and put him down as to help heal him with the aid of the other medic nin nearby. "I collect the souls of the deceased, and there was quite a few still within this village, tethered into place, since they demanded that their clan be avenged before they can move on. Yet, their only chance at being avenged was in the hands of quite literally the weakest of their clan. I collected the souls of the Uchiha to use in plans for the future." "You dare desecrate the Uchiha like this?" shouted Sasuke. "Release them at once!" "I dare because I can. Yet, out of all of the souls your clan tainted by darkness in their lives, only your mother was capable of ascending into the heavens, since your soul was full of light. She helped patch me up some of my greatest wounds, and I owed her my very life. The one time she found me with my legs cut off and bleeding out. She sewed them back on and let the Kyuubi within me heal. I legged it back onto my body. The rest deserve was coming to them. They are nothing more than a clan of traitors. If you make any more demands of me, I will end you quite easily, and your so-called ultimate power will not save you. Let my clan! Said Sasuke as Naruto didn't give him the chance to finish his sentences, and simply shot him between the eyes, or an eye hole, with his pistol. Tsunade flinched in shock from seeing a strong shinobi like Sasuke get taken down so easily, and by the dead last no less. Naruto repeated the process he had done for Hinata by taking the soul of one of the Uchiha clan, and used his energy to restart Sasuke's soul. He healed his body after Naruto. His body healed after Naruto threw his soul into his body. His destroyed eye healing up as well. I hope you are happy, said Naruto as he noticed all the other nin in the chapel had left to take those who were injured in his attacks to the hospital, so there was only the four of them. Since for the second time in the history of this village, Sasuke Uchiha has doomed your village. And with that being said, Naruto used his power to summon forth the Kyuubi itself in all of its demonic glory. It howled out in rage as it grew to its full size, breaking the chapel apart itself as he grew up. And as he reached his full size, he let out a earth-shattering roar that caused fear to seep into all who heard it. Kyuubi shouted, Naruto, destroy one-third of the village. Okay, so that's the end of this episode. I did stammer and pause a lot. I'm sorry. But I was nervous since I was hoping that I wouldn't lose the information this time. So I was stammering a lot. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. See you guys later on.